Hello, people. Welcome to the Lee Cole 3 podcast with James Proctor, my partner. James, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing really well. How are you today, Lee?
Not bad at all. I just want everybody to know that the anniversary, 2-year anniversary of this show is coming up. It's going to be with the next week. And we have like 4 or 5 videos already made in the hole. So we're going to be dropping video after video over the next few days, right, James?
Oh yeah, definitely. We've been really busy. A lot of cool shows that we've already recorded, and so looking forward to getting it out for everyone.
And then we came across this show by Mikey Scars, and it's in his
Patreon, I believe. Yeah.
Patreon. And people, for $10, his Patreon's well worth it. And let me
Yes.
tell you why, because he puts out stuff that Sammy says, and he tells you why it's not true. And the way he lays it out is quite good. And
Yes.
people might say, hey, Lee, you're talking about what he's saying, or James, we're talking about what they're saying. Again, here's the reason we're doing it. Because he says this stuff in his Patreon. It doesn't get out to, this stuff should get out to as many people as possible, right? Would you say that
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
our job to put this stuff out here? Because Sammy Gravano, sometimes as big of a gangster he is, he likes to change his stories around quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And this is just about having history in its proper place. Just trying to get the right information out that's accurate. And so, when we see these guys embellish or not accurate, we feel it's our job to be able to put it out there, the truth.
Exactly. And you know something, and Sammy gives us a lot of that. And Sammy said that he kind of compared Mikey Scars to a fly, and then Mikey Scars says, I'm that fly at the barbecue that never leaves you alone.
Yeah.
Once again, a good comeback from Mikey Scars. And but we're going to talk about a few things that Sammy said that aren't accurate. And people, this is why it's important to call him out on these things. Okay, first of all, Sammy always made it is it Tato Arella?
Yeah, Tato. Yeah.
Okay, he always made it sound like he found him and stuff, but the reality is, first of all, we know quite a few things because back during that time, Mikey Scars was around. All right, so why don't you break that down? His meeting, how he actually met him.
Yeah. So actually, he was in the Colombo family. Talking about we're talking about Sammy Gravano, and Sammy was with the Colombo family. Had some issues with the family, and so he couldn't work with the I believe with Shorty, Spiro, and so anyway, his friend Louis Molito actually helped to get him, under the as an associate under the Gambino family, and so he knew Johnny Rizzo, the old man, the senior, and then Johnny obviously knew Tato, and so it was really through Louis Molito helping out that they were able to get Sammy moved from the Colombo family as an associate to the Gambino family under Tato, and Tato was a mentor for Sammy. That's definitely true. And then probably 4 or 5 years later, he does end up getting made as a soldier in the Gambino family.
And what's different about this is very rarely does he give Louis Molito that credit. I don't know why he seems so quiet about Louis, but also we found out that there was a feud going toward the end. Louis and Sammy Gravano were not tight, were they?
No, no, they weren't, and so that they had, they had a lot of issues towards the end, but they were best friends, for are good friends for many years. Sammy was around the family, the Molito family, all the time. They would do things personally together. And my understanding about Louis Molito, he was very loyal. He was someone that was a very capable soldier. He got made, after Sammy. And anyway, what ended up happening was that Sammy was grabbing businesses, building his empire. Him and
and
Louis
him and
were
Louis
getting into
were
problems.
together, and Louis felt like he was screwing him over.
Right, and then Louis actually did some work. I think really what upset Sammy was Louis went to do some work with, with Big Paul's driver, Bilotti, and so anyway, that was uh, kind of the last issue with the two, and then Sammy felt that Melito was not loyal, and then has him killed.
And eventually he goes to John Gotti. He gets permission to kill him. But if you look
Yes.
at any of the stories that Sammy tells, it's because of drugs. Louis was out of control,
Hmm.
and it doesn't seem to be the case, does it?
No, I really look at Louis Molito as a good friend. They were together for many years. Louis Molito is very capable. He did a lot of work for the family. He was definitely someone that shouldn't have been killed in most
And then
people's
Sammy took
opinion.
over his businesses,
Yes.
and surprise, surprise. Okay, we're
Yeah.
going to get to another story. Jimmy Brown Fiala.
Hmm.
Okay, so Sammy said that he wanted that he confronted him and smacked him around or something. Let's explain that story and why it would not be true.
Yeah. So part of it was what Sammy's saying is that he wanted to go to Big or not wanted. He actually went to Big Paul's. Is what Sammy's saying. He went to Big Paul, and understand this was in the early '80s. This was when Sammy was a soldier, and so the problem was that he had an issue with Jimmy Brown, and so Brown was an old timer. He was very close to Big Paul. In fact, Brown goes back all the way to Carlo Gambino
A
in
matter
the
of fact, here's a picture, and
50s.
he was his driver, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was his driver, and then Carlo rewarded him and gave him the waste hauling rackets. And so, Brown was one of the top earners in that family. He was very, very powerful, but he was quiet, he was respected, and he was a very cautious mobster. And so, anyway, he had a social club. I know the Veteran Friends social club he had, but I'm not sure if that's the same one, but Louise. So we got this lady, Louise Grimaldi, and so Louise was Sammy's girlfriend. Also had a brother named John Grimaldi, which we'll go over that
Yeah,
later. But
yeah.
but Louise was the girlfriend, so she wanted a job. She got a job working for Jimmy Brown's club, and then for some reason there was rumors that Louise was some sort of rat or informant, which wasn't true. And anyway, Sammy was upset about that, and then word gets back to him that supposedly Jimmy Brown, made moves on Louise, and so Sammy's upset, goes to Big Paul, and he says Big Paul gave him permission to abuse him. You know,
Okay, so let's say so he's saying that he's a soldier. That's what
hmm
Sammy is. He's a soldier, and
Brown's a captain.
Uh, he's getting permission to smack this guy around. Who is what rank is he at that time? Like
Yeah, he's a capo and a very big earner, and he's a confidant and friend of Big Paul.
okay, so we're supposed to believe that he smacked him around, right?
Right, and then the other thing is that's a problem is where's title in all of this because you don't just go straight to the boss
You go to
and
the
have a
guy who's in charge
grievance.
of you, right?
Right, right, and that what should have happened then is go to title, and since title was also a captain at the time, then it should have went to either the consigliere to deal with it or go to the boss. Because consigliere does get involved depending on the family and some of these issues, but
But this isn't
basically,
really an issue. This is a soldier
hmm
that wants to go smack a captain.
yeah, he's trying to say that Jimmy was messing around with his trying to sleep with his girlfriend.
And so
So
if he was, there's nothing Sammy could do about it.
yeah, well, the thing is that in that life, you're not supposed to uh, go with another man's wife or girlfriend,
It
even
wasn't a
if it's
wife, it was a girlfriend. It's a captain.
right. It is, and so
It
what
doesn't
should have
matter. It doesn't
he
matter.
could have just said to him, "Hey, this is my girlfriend." Jimmy Brown might not have even known if Sammy had just said that, then most likely Brown said, "Yeah, that's cool, understood, no problem." But yeah, I mean, this wouldn't have happened where you would go be given permission to smack someone, especially Jimmy Brown.
Mikey Scars doesn't even think the story is true for the simple fact that Brown wasn't that type of guy.
Yeah, he wasn't that type of guy to do that. So
you got a soldier, and Brown at that time is close to a capo, I think.
but
he's a big time confident, the big Paul. Yes. So Paul is going to give Sammy permission to go, and Sammy just got in the family. Mm-hmm. So there's a new guy to the family that's already getting permission to smack captains around, or guys that are just about capos.
Yeah, that wouldn't happen.
And this is what Mikey Scars does. He breaks things down and he tells us why it's not possible for these things to happen. And we're going to give you more stuff.
Yeah.
Because this show was very good and went over a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it was a very good, about an hour, 30 minutes or so, hour and 15 minutes. It was a very good, RJ and him having a discussion, Mikey Scars.
Okay, now we're going to get into Bobby Bashia. Is that how you say his name?
Yes, Bashia.
Okay. So it was funny. Someone brought Bobby Bashia up on this the show with Sammy, and Sammy said he didn't know who he was.
Right.
Who testified against Robert?
Yeah, that was actually Sammy. So
Sammy. So let's get this straight. Sammy said on his show he doesn't know who he is.
Right.
But there's actual depositions of him testifying against the guy in court.
Yeah, exactly, because he was involved in a hit that Sammy was testifying against. This Francesco Olivieri, so that Sammy, that was one of the 19 murders that Sammy was involved with.
Yeah, and then we're going to get to that's street things, people. We're just putting out there what was presented. Mm-hmm. And you guys take them for whatever. We're not saying they're 100% true. We don't know.
Right.
But we do know that Sammy testified against Robert Bashia and doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
Well, he claims.
Yeah.
And he seems like he has a pretty good memory, so I don't see why he would forget that.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to get to a murder. In general, who was John Grimaldi? Without discussing the murder part, let's kind of run down who John Grimaldi. There's no pictures of John Grimaldi. I don't even know if he's associated with the bread people Grimaldi, but let's break him down a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, he was just a kid in the neighborhood. He was someone that ran around with, he was friendly with Robert. Mikey Scars' brother, Robert. So he's a little.
So he was friendly with Robert Dileonardo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, and then the Larry Persico. He was friends with Joe Brewster. So he just kind of hung out. He was he liked to smoke pot. He was drank, liked to party. Young kid, just was someone that got along with people, and he was known as mild-mannered, but a tough kid. He would take care of himself if someone went after him. But he was just someone in the neighborhood.
And so he's close to So one day, Larry Persico. What happens between him and Larry Persico?
Yeah.
Who is the son of Carmine Persico? Just so we know, Larry Persico and Michael Persico are the sons of one of the sons. There's a few sons.
Yeah.
But those are the two of the sons, Michael and Larry. Of Carmine Persico. Okay, so explains what happens between Larry and Grimaldi.
Yeah, so John Grimaldi and Larry Persico, they went to a bar. They'd been drinking, they'd gotten high, and so they start having an altercation in the bar that ends up going over to the street. And then during this, Larry slapped or hit John Grimaldi, and then John responds by actually stabbing Larry Persico with a knife, in the liver. So wasn't in the leg, wasn't in the arm. So it was actually, John was upset. He wanted to kill Larry, and so he put it in, and it just missed his liver. And so that's what happened that night. And then that started another chain of events, which led to John's murder that we can get into.
Yeah, well, so John Grimaldi stabs him, and then he knows he's in big trouble. And this is where Sammy comes in once again.
Yeah.
He knows he's in big trouble because not only did he stab someone, he stabbed Carmine Persico's son.
Yeah, you stabbed the boss's son
in the liver, and the guy lives, But the fact is, it was a kill shot stab. It's not like he sliced his arm. He wanted to kill him. And so what happened after this? This happened.
Yes, sure. So John ends up he's hiding out. Words on the street. So obviously Carmine Persico's pissed off. He puts a hit out on John Grimaldi, and then you've got multiple crews looking for John throughout Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, that area. So what they want to do is pick him up. The plan is they're going to torture him and then eventually kill him for striking Larry. So that's the plan.
But they said that if they find him, if someone handed them in, they would kill him quick.
Yeah. So if it didn't, well, the problem is if the crew got him and brought him to Carmine or to the family, they would have definitely, went to a warehouse, went somewhere and would have tortured the guy. But,
right.
The thing is, someone else could go in there and maybe put him out of his misery, per se, really fast.
So this guy's running around, and tell us how Sammy's involved with this, because Sammy Gravano, and wait till you hear this story. So tell us how Sammy's involved with this guy Grimaldi.
Yeah, so he's dating again. We mentioned Louise Grimaldi earlier, and so Louise is Sammy's girlfriend, and then Joe is the brother of Louise, and so that's how Sammy's involved in it. So in all of this, John knows that they're looking for him, and so he had during this being on the lam, but he didn't leave the neighborhood. That's what everyone that was friends with John said. Hey, you just got to get out of this.
Yeah, there's no coming back from this.
There's no. This is not saying that's forgivable. There's no way to get out of it. So anyway, John did go to Sammy, asked him and his sister Louise help him out with the beef with the Persicos, and Sammy said that he would do what he could. Also, at the same time, you would see John would spend time with during this time where people were looking for him. He was close to Joe Brewster, which was a guy that was in the at the time. He was an associate with the Greg Scarpa crew, and so Joseph Di Domenico, and then Robert Dileonardo. That's Mikey Scars' brother. So they were friends, and this guy Joe Brewster, interesting, was actually a second godson to Greg Scarpa. But anyway,
so we'll get it to. So he had. So at this time, Sammy, tell us the story that Sammy tells us now about what he was going to do to try to save this kid, which we know is no way was going to happen.
Yeah. So he said that he was going to go. He was going to talk to Carmine Persico personally and see if the kid John could get a pass. And and then he's saying that the Persicos were ducking him. They didn't want to talk to him, and so
Sammy was going to go up to Carmine Persico and say, "Hey, look, the guy that stabbed your son. We got to give him a pass. He's a good kid." Sammy would get killed for suggesting it. I'm sure. It's.
Yeah, that's not the protocol. You say that's the problem. Is the protocol would have been, again, in a lot of these stories we don't hear about Tuttle. Why didn't he go to his captain on that? This was in the late 70s or maybe 1980. This was when he was a soldier, talking about Sammy. And so what should have happened is that would have went to Tuttle if he wanted to get involved. But, I think Sammy should have known by that time that there was no turning back. There was no way to have a pass. And so, the other thing that Mikey Scars mentioned is even if it went to Tuttle went to Big Paul. Big Paul wouldn't want to get involved in this. So you're going to have Big Paul set up a meeting with Carmine Persico to defend a junkie that stabbed the boss's son.
Remember, Big Paul is someone who had a family, who had a daughter that got hit by somebody, and he had his son-in-law killed. So why would he say, "Hey, this is something"?
Yeah, both of them hated drug users. I mean, That's the problem. There was no turning back. This was akin to, when Paulie G pushed, Sparrow. You can't do that.
There's just some things that
Sparrow.
in the life you're not coming back from, and stabbing the boss's son, whether the boss's son was a jerk or not,
Hmm.
uh, we there's no coming back from it.
Yeah, and
So,
both of them were big drug, just partied and took drugs and stuff, but still, it didn't matter. That was the boss's son.
and these neighborhood kids, they don't realize that this is neighborhood, but you got to get the hell out of here. You're a dead man. And I don't know what they're thinking in their head. It's just like, once you did that, go, get as much money as you can and go. And
Yeah,
everybody was telling this
exactly.
guy.
Yeah,
So,
and that would have been the worst thing to do for Sammy to get involved. You know what they would have done, and this is something that Mikey mentioned. And this is true. They would have, Big Paul would have told Sammy, you've got to bring him in. You got to bring him into the Persicos. You know the guy. You're friends with him, or you've got to bring him in.
and then
And
he's
then,
and Grimaldi's talking crazy. He's talking
mhm.
about going to Persico's house and killing everybody in the house.
Yeah, and that's really, so the thing was, that's really what changed some stuff. So Joe Brewster, Robert, and Mikey Scars as well. They wanted to kind of look out for this kid, John. They were willing to kind of you know hide him a little bit, but basically wanted him just to get the hell out of the city. And but then John comes over. He's high, upset. And he's got the guy's got guns with him because he's paranoid. He knows that there's crews out there looking for him, and so he can't go back to his house because they've got Scarpa's crews out there ready to take him out. So anyway, what happens? They say, "Yeah, I'm going to go to Carmine Persico's house. I'm going to knock on the door and then kill everyone there." And then Mikey Scar says, "Well, don't you realize there's women and children there? So you're going to do that? Take them out too?" And he said, "Yes. I'm going to take out all of them." At that point, they realized, we can't let this happen. And that's saying Mikey Scars told his brother. He said, "You just can't let this happen. You've got to deal with this."
And so eventually, what happened though is Robert Leonardo sets him up to be killed, and so explain that part. What happened?
Yeah, so as you know, Joe Brewster and Robert were good friends. They were friends with John. Had been helping John out. And then anyway, they said, "Hey, we've got a meeting. I guess to resolve it or whatever." And anyway, so anyway, John Grimaldi comes into the vehicle. Joe Brewster takes out a gun, blows
Turns around and shoots him.
shoots him in the head, and then even then, John had a gun with him that was fell between his legs. So this guy was there was just no choice. And so what this ended up happening, and it's sad situation. And Louise is still alive, so I'm considered of the victims of this. But the problem is that if it went to the Persicos, they would have tortured John, and then
Yeah.
would have killed him. And so it was more of a mercy, is merciful to just put him out of his misery. If he just wouldn't leave town, there was just no way to get out of that, unfortunately.
And here's the life of the mafia.
Hmm.
Two people were involved in setting him up. Robert Dileonardo. What happened to him?
Yeah, he gets killed in 1981. They accuse him of, well, he's killed because of being on drugs, going against the drug
Yes.
edict
And what did
the
Sammy
family
said he got
set.
killed because of? Why did Sammy say he got killed?
Yeah, and this is another thing, and this really bothered Mikey Scars. So Sammy's saying the reason that Robert got killed was because of his, trying to protect John Grimaldi, but it's just that's not the case. It's because of the drug edict, and Sammy. But at the end of the day, John actually helped. I'm sorry, Robert actually helped to set up, along with Joe Brewster, John to get taken out, and so that was the way they could get get made eventually.
And Brewster was part of the hit. And what happened to Brewster?
Yeah. So Brewster ends up getting made. Robert didn't, but Brewster then a few years later in 1987 actually gets killed by Greg Scarpa Jr. Because Brewster apparently turned to religion, became a Christian, and Greg Scarpa Sr., which had been an informant for 20 years, was afraid that this guy Joe Brewster was going to be a rat, and so they killed him.
God forbid if
Shot him several times in the head.
And God forbid if Scarpa, who at the time was a rat, he was already talking to somebody on a regular basis, Fed,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he was worried about somebody else being a rat. Kind of ironic, ain't it?
Yeah, it's very ironic, but yeah, that's what happened. So what you have is that so John gets killed by two people close to him. That's the way the life goes. You get
It
your
went to
friend, you
John,
get
and then
someone
Robert
close.
got killed for drug use, and then it led to Brewster, who got killed because he found religion.
Yep,
Welcome to them. The Colombo family. All these families, they have some weird stuff going on in it. But the Colombo family, the characters, the vicious killing. I mean, all the families had vicious killing, but the Colombos, they just seem so different than the other families, didn't they?
Yeah, they always had a kind of a weird situation. One, obviously, with Greg Scarpa, but also, you had the three wars that went on, so that made it different. The other thing was that, most of the time, Carmine Persico was in jail during his reign, and so you always had different street bosses, acting bosses, that type of thing, and so you always had this chaos that was going on. It just wasn't a strong family through a lot of that time.
And there's other stuff that we could talk about, but this is a 30-minute video, and that's all we wanted to do it. And there's other stuff. Believe me, there's other stuff too. And this is why we say, it's good stuff. I mean, I watched it's funny. They say that Sammy's videos are good.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I haven't talked to Mikey Scars in a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't been talking to his partner.
Mm-hmm.
This is just my honest opinion, and I'm sure it's yours too, James.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that was a very fascinating show. The way that Mikey Scars broke it down.
Yes.
You understood that it made sense why it could not happen.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it was very emotional too. If we won't cover it here because Michael, covered it, but he talks about how him and Michael Persico talked about it, and Mikey Scars had shared the story about what happened with John Grimaldi and his brother and all that, and so I like Michael Persico is really felt really bad about the situation, but Michael Persico and Mikey Scars had been friends, and then my understanding is Larry Persico was he's a delivery driver, right? Pizza.
Well, I don't know what he is now. This picture was taken back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if he's alive. I don't know nothing. I really don't know.
Right. I
But
just know he had a hard life for
drugs. And people don't realize a lot of these gangsters, drugs were their downfall, or they had them killed, or so many of them. A huge amount of these gangsters. It's kind of funny. Stay away from drugs, but half of them were on drugs.
Yeah, that's the hypocrisy of it. It was easy to make some money with it, and so, you start combination of greed and hypocrisy and everything. You see a lot of things that definitely went against the edicts and the rules that were in place.
And Sammy Gravano was the underboss of, at that time, quite possibly the most powerful, the second most powerful family in New York.
Sure.
He doesn't have to add these tills. He doesn't have to add on. He could talk about stuff that is so true and so exciting. But this is what the problem with him and Mikey Scars is. Mikey Scars hears him saying this, but Mikey Scars was around in the same era. Would you say that's
yeah? I mean, that's really what it is, because what you're seeing is that Mikey's able to counter what Sammy's saying, and then you've never before Michael, you never had really anybody that could do that. They were either dead in jail or someone that was in the life that's not going to speak. So, you basically had Sammy with free reign. He could say what he wanted. The only, and so we have a lot that, even before Michael, we were able to, talk about the 302s. We're able to talk about the, his book Underboss, where it countered a lot of what he's saying now. But now you got someone that was actually in that era with him, in that, that actually knew Sammy, knew most of the same people. They kind of had the same group of people they were around. So, it's fascinating to me to be able to get this.
And it gets more and
sorted.
more interesting, but it makes you think that guys that were in the life that are still alive and they hear Sammy talk and they know that he's lying about certain things,
Right.
how they must think, but they're not informants, so they don't come on here.
Yeah, they're
And
not going to.
but luckily we have one informant on here that's on here that just happened to be in the same life, same family, same time, and even friends with Sammy at a point.
Yeah, they were good friends, and
Yeah.
so to me, it's good to be able to get, as we've said, we just want to get the history out, get the facts out, and so, hopefully everyone will like this video, subscribe if they haven't.
Please,
and then-
underneath it, I just running it. Please subscribe. Please
Yep.
hit the like button, and please hit the reminder. And thank everybody for getting us to the point we are.
Yes.
And we have we're going to be dropping videos every day because this is anniversary month, and we're going to
Yes.
keep it nice and busy. And everybody, take care. Thank you
Take care.
so much, James.
thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
for doing this with me.
Oh, yeah, of course. Love it. Everyone have
Take
a
care,
great day.
people.